back. I hope that you enjoyed the chance to actually talk with some of the admissions directors of these four wonderful schools. Now the chance to take a deeper dive into the architecture of the programs and how they keep you so busy with so many different options, the doors that will open as you spend your 2 years at business school. Now you can see that one of my guests has a basketball jersey, not just any basketball jersey. Of course, we're talking about Duke. And this is Russ's basketball sweater that he wore when he was a walk-on. And we've been talking about how professional athletes, individuals from the creative world, display all of those signs of grit and determination. So I'm sure that's a message that will come across in the next 45 minutes. So it's a pleasure to welcome Russ Morgan. Russ is Senior Associate Dean at Duke and at the Fuqua School of Business. He's joined by Gail Nichols. Gail is the Executive Director of the MBA program at Kelley at Indiana University. Gary Fraser with those permanent blue skies of California behind him. Gary is the Associate Dean of the MBA program at Anderson. And Tina Mabley, the one who's inviting everybody back for ice cream. Tina is the Assistant Dean of the full-time MBA program at UT McCombs. Of course, Tina, we've already heard from your colleagues, so we can't say anything frozen. It has to be fresh. But tell us about McCombs and a school that you love, that you know so well. How do you like to describe McCombs to others?
Sure. I think there's a place in our building that I take students to when we visit where it's on the 5th floor and you can look to one side and see only the city of Austin and to the other side and see the campus of UT. And when we had the opportunity to build our new building right at the intersection of the campus and the city, that really became a defining characteristic for us. I said we got by on our winning personality before that, on a beautiful campus, but really being able to be thoughtful about the space that we built. And, first day students said it felt like us and it felt like home. And part of that is the transparency, the spontaneous collisions. We have a very open 4-story staircase where a lot of business happens. And so I think, the live laboratory that we have in the city of Austin, which is just down the street, and the intersection that our school, the University of Texas and the city of Austin have really grown up together. I had the fortunate opportunity to be here way back in the 80s and saw it when it was a small town. And so there's a really nice symbiotic relationship between the city and the university. And so I think that's one thing. And we really take advantage of our university with the interdisciplinary opportunities that we have with our medical school. We have med students in our MBA class. We have our pharmacy school. We have our architecture school for our real estate students, the communication school with radio, television, and film and entertainment. So we really try to take advantage of those cross-campus collaborations for students to really immerse themselves.
And I hope that you took advantage of real estate in Austin in the 1980s. That was the moment, I think, to buy
Right.
before such a dynamic city took over. Gail, picture postcard on the Indiana campus in Bloomington. So, Kelley again sits at the heart of all of that. How do you describe Kelley to others?
So, hi, everyone, and thanks for having me here, Matt. Glad to tell you a little bit about Kelley's program. We're a mid-sized program, and we have a very strong focus on career and professional development here. And I'll tell you in a second about some of the specific things we do around that. But in addition to that, we offer a very customizable curriculum. This is not a kind of cookie cutter program where everybody's going through and doing the exact same thing. Students really have the opportunity to tailor their experience to their interests and their professional goals. And we have a very warm community, an enormous alumni network of about 130,000 Kelley alumni out there in the world between our program, undergrad, et cetera. So there are lots and lots of people who can help our students get their careers launched, get advice, mentoring, all of those things. Now, about the career focus, 2 things that we do that are pretty unique are these. One is our Me Inc. professional development program. That's Me, like me, Inc. And we do that for several weeks, 2 to 3 weeks before students ever set foot in their first class. This is an opportunity for students to think about their personal brand, to practice their elevator pitch, to refine their resumes and their LinkedIn profiles, to practice networking, to learn how to research companies and opportunities, to really get off to the best possible start for their career journey that they're going to embark upon in the MBA program. Also, we offer students what we call academies, which are kind of a bridge between traditional coursework and the career path that students are going to pursue. We have 6 different foundational academies. Students participate in one in the first year, and it's super important in terms of content, networking, and experiential learning. So I'll stop there.
Well, it's a great place to start. And the idea of Me Inc. We were talking earlier, Russ, about the Fuqua essay that talks about, 25 things about the individual. And then you bring them into this team. At Duke, we talk about Team Fuqua. So tell us about the school.
Yeah, so I kind of jump into what some of the things that have already been said, but Durham is an amazing place to live, and we've seen it just boom. Maybe not like Austin, but really boom in terms of tech and some of the connectivity there. So a lot of times I will start with students and talk a little bit about this community and what they're joining. They're joining Duke University, which is an amazing university. Some of the things that have already been connected, opportunities you might have to connect to a fantastic medical school or school of the environment or law school or policy school. So we have an amazing backdrop for where we are. I talk about us as being a relatively young school. And so our first students came in 1970. And with that, we've got, a population of 30,000 or so alums, but they're incredibly engaged. They're a relatively younger group of alums that just are phenomenally engaged with us. And so the Team Fuqua aspect of life here really drives things. And so when I talk about what differentiates Fuqua, it really is the culture that's here, and the culture gets embedded throughout curricular and co-curricular activity. And it's just this idea that it's a way that we work together to draw out the strengths of others is the way that we talk about it. You're a member of a team. You're a member of a collaborative team that's going to work together. Our team works together throughout the entire core. And so we've got a core curriculum that we just reviewed. And so we went through and said, what are the things that we need to have come out of the core? And one of those things was breadth. We wanted to ensure that all of our academic areas were represented, that you had a base foundation. If you were going to be a Duke graduate, if you're going to be a Fuqua graduate, you had at least some exposure to certain material. We talked about relevance, and so making sure that this curriculum was updated. But we leaned really hard as kind of the third pillar of that it had to be consistent with our values and our culture. And so Team Fuqua is something that when we do it mid-student day, the most frequent question I get is this a real thing, or is this just a branding thing? Duke does a great job with Team Fuqua and branding. But it's a real thing. And by the time students get in here and spend some time here, they realize the support that comes with that. So we leaned heavily into that.
Now, Gary, what Tina didn't share is that view from the 5th floor, she makes them walk up the stairs. Nobody gets to take the elevator. But perhaps we've all felt that we've somehow seen UCLA's campus through Hollywood and film. But to actually get up close to the school, I'll hand over to you and share some of the characteristics that do make it such a distinct and wonderful place.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This year's Oscar Award winner Oppenheimer some of the scenes were filmed here on campus at UCLA. But it's great to be here with 3 of my colleagues in this MBA space, representing great schools, and it does show that there's so many great options, for students, and definitely some overlapping things and some unique things as well too. At UCLA Anderson, we've been we're almost at 90 years being around. We started in 1935, and we have a class size in the full-time MBA program of about 300 students. I think what makes Anderson a little unique is that we do have this really tight-knit community, since we have such a relatively small population compared to some of the business schools that are in larger cities. And so rather than 5, 6, 7, 800 students in a class, we just have 300. So everyone knows everyone. But it has this unique and interesting balance of being in the second largest city in the United States. And as a state, California is the fifth largest, it would be the fifth largest economy in the world. And so students get exposed to a lot of aspects of business in this outer world, but they still have this kind of home away from home in terms of the business school, given the size of the program. And I think the thing that also makes us a little different is, our approach towards leadership is evolving. We had a strategic plan that we finished in 2021, so coming up on 3 years. And it really called for us to really define what the leader of tomorrow should be. And then we talk about it as a transformative leader and these important capabilities, which is left brain and right brain, so some creative things and engagement things, but also some analytical things. And, I'll get into it a little more later on, but I think that it's that combination of how you can work with, this intimate group, but in a large metropolitan area. We tend to attract students that are interested in a metropolitan backdrop, but still want this sense of community.
Right. Well, you talk about leaders and the challenges that they will face today and certainly tomorrow. And Russ had mentioned breadth. Tina, as you think about that through the lens of Austin, as we grapple with AI and the advances in technology, Austin has certainly seen a lot of those tech firms coming into the city. How do you then create that fusion between business and that technology landscape to make sure that they're prepared for the careers that they will go on to pursue?
Yeah, if we've learned anything in the past few years, it's that every year is something new. And so one of the things that we've added to our orientation is an emerging technologies session, because some of it is even just students hearing what's current, and so that we sort of make an introduction, and then we encourage them through their projects that they work on, their micro consulting projects, working with companies in Austin, working at our tech incubator, getting involved in the Capital Factory, really just staying current on what's happening from a technology perspective, and using all kinds of avenues to make that happen. The idea of the emerging technologies opportunity and orientation comes from one of our leading professors, Maytal Sarchansky, who does our AI and business and society, and also a predictive analytics class. And what we told her was we really wanted the opportunity for students to hear what's current, think about them, sort of start to pay attention to different things. Most of our students are coming in, very savvy about what's out there and wanting to take advantage of things. And so they also utilize each other in that. And we've added some new classes to make sure that we're staying current with what's happening. And then we have some classes that we're doing an energy ventures class as an example. And so students will bring in venture opportunities and seek out alumni mentors to help kind of solidify new ideas. We have a new energy savings idea that one of our students is working on. And so we really try to utilize all the resources at play to stay current on what's happening, because it changes so fast. And so students are really at the center of that. And so many times they bring things. I mean, I think what's exciting about an MBA classroom is that your learning is all over. One of the things we did here was we democratized the classroom, where anybody can throw their screen up to the front of the room, so the professors can really extract the knowledge from the people who are in the room, because everybody knows about something that other people don't know about. And so really trying to capitalize on what's coming into the classroom. If we're coming together in person, why are we doing that? And let's take advantage of that. So utilizing all those resources is really the big thing, and recognizing that the soft skills, the things that MBAs have been good at on the fringes, communication, critical thinking, are the really essential, immutable skills that technology and the robots are not going to supplant.
Right. Well, I'm wondering about this guy just above my shoulder, what he has on his laptop screen. Maybe I don't think he's ready to share it with the rest of the class. But Gail, you talked about the personalized experience, and of course, data analytics, AI, all of these, very fast emerging fields. How do you then ensure the balance that they're also getting, the sort of the people management skills and thinking about personalizing the experience so that everybody draws what they're looking for?
Yeah, it's a great question. We work really closely with students individually to help them assess the skills that they feel they may need to build and to put together a plan of study that will help them to develop the skills that they need or that they want. We, of course, include many foundational subjects as part of our core, as I'm sure my counterparts here do too. So we have a communications course as part of the core. We have operations, we have accounting, we have finance, marketing, all the things. Business law and ethics, managerial accounting. So students are learning all those foundational things, but then they work with an academic advisor, they work with a career coach who's paired with them to help them work out their plan of study and figure out what they need to do, help them to achieve that.
Right. And an idea in whether it's in technology that emerges in Durham or on the West Coast with Gary. But Russ, to then bring that sort of global perspective, you're attracting international students from all over the world, and perhaps preparing them for careers that will see them working across different cultures and very diverse teams.
Yeah, I think that's a great connection to the idea of what has technology and innovation done, and it has created a world that's much more accessible. And so the talent is very mobile. We have means of connecting teams, and so how do we think about not just the opportunity, but almost the obligation that we have to foster the development of those teams? And so I think it marries well with where kind of we started. And I talked a little bit about Team Fuqua and teams. And so this idea that we gain so much from having diverse teams as long as you have inclusivity on those teams. And so we've worked very hard to make sure that that's understood. So I think a starting point is making sure the business community understands the opportunity that we have, that diverse teams are going to outperform homogeneous teams, hands down, as long as you have a way of working across those cultures and making sure everyone's engaged and is able to put their input in there. And so what we tried to do is to foster that. And I think some of the other schools here do as well, but just this idea that we can pull in talent across the world, begin to treat it like a laboratory here, show them what the gains from diversity are, and then put them in situations where you need to work with diverse teammates and see what the product of that can be. And so sometimes that's really difficult. We're in an increasingly polarized world right now. And so you can think about in natural settings, people don't necessarily seek out diverse people, and they don't benefit from that diversity. And so what we've tried to do is make sure people feel very comfortable with the idea of how you work with diverse teammates and see the gains that you get from those connections. And then through fostering that, that can be through the teamwork that we have, and I mentioned all the core courses, but all the experiential education that we have and the different centers that we have, whether that's projects they might do in health sector management or on social entrepreneurship, or maybe leadership and ethics from that center, or even sustainability. You begin to put these people on teams and they can see the output of that. So I think that's really important as we think about how do we train these people to work toward that in the future, is to see the motivation behind that and then get some practice, because it's not easy. We do have teams that initially have some struggles because of that diversity before they see the product of that.
Right. And Gary, when Tina was talking about learning from everywhere and every source, when you've got a program of 300 in a big city in Los Angeles, are you then very consciously thinking about individuals, that might come from banking and only work with bankers? They might come from the world of software and only worked with software engineers. And suddenly there's this opportunity to bring all of these diverse backgrounds and voices together. Is that when magic really happens?
It is. I mean, I think that's where you get the magic of these teams that come together. I think I totally agree with Russ in terms of not only creating diverse teams, but giving them the tools of how they can work and engage with each other. We just have one essay prompt in our application, and it's really asking people to tell us a story of either personal or professional perseverance. So how have they persevered through some aspect of their life? Because we do believe that's kind of an important building block to becoming the leader of tomorrow. How have you overcome some kind of odd or difficult situation? So we kind of start that process when they're applying, but at the same time, it's just important that those people share their experiences. And that's what makes business school great, is that everyone's bringing a different component, piece to the puzzle, so to speak. And we purposely create teams that are diverse in so many different dimensions. And certainly one is previous experiences, so that those teams are helping others get up to speed on certain aspects, because the core is pretty full. And I always say that in any of these programs, we're taking people in the top 10 or 20% of their lives, and we're putting them all together. So that's very stressful, because now it's thinking, I may not be in the top 20% in this particular class, and I have to understand how I build a relationship, partner with someone to get up to speed where I can, and also give back when it's needed from my teammates. And so I think that immediate immersion kind of creates those situations. We also provide conflict analysis to understand what each person's individual conflict style is, because as you do engage with people that are different than you, how do you deal with conflict, and is it similar than someone else? And so we have teams do that, but also talk about their results, so they can know, okay, when someone does this, it means that, and this is how I should try and mirror or respond to how they're dealing with that conflict, so we can resolve it. So I think in terms of putting those teams together, it's giving them ingredients so that they can find successes in what they're bringing to the table, but also deal with those differences in ways that maybe they haven't done before.
Right. Well, you can't even watch the Super Bowl these days without conflict analysis and anger management that even Taylor Swift can't fix. I was thinking, now, can I ask Tina the ethics question? The ethics, Tina. But I'm going to frame it in terms of responsible business, which really is a theme that's perhaps always been with us, but there seems to be a greater focus. Well, what does it mean to McCombs, responsible business?
Sure. I'm going to date myself, because when I was in school in the 1900s, I went to one of the early net impact Students for Socially Responsible Business. And so it has been a conversation for a long time. What I love now is it sort of entered the mainstream, and it's really part of the ethos. We all have big challenges that we're trying to solve on a global scale. And so one of the things that we built into our curriculum was a responsibility and integrity requirement, which can be satisfied with ethics courses or social responsibility courses, or serving as a board fellow, when doing a project with a partner nonprofit, because we wanted to recognize that students were going to engage in this in different ways. And so, and I know a lot of my peers have similar options and programs. And so we really wanted our MBAs to have be thinking about, have a thoughtful conversation, and apply that knowledge. One of the things that we have here is our Ethics Unwrapped videos. They're sort of bite-sized videos that are offered by some of our faculty, and we hired a production company to produce them, and so they're available for free for anybody on the internet. So companies use them, other schools use them, but it's our Center for Leadership is actually our Center for Leadership and Ethics, and so we really wanted to embed ethics in the leadership space. And then we also have a Global Sustainability Leadership Institute. So really kind of dovetailing those and recognizing that students are gonna engage in those things in different ways, and we wanted to give them some optionality in that. So, but that it is a program requirement, so it's something that they have to show or engage in the conversation in a meaningful way. And we have a list of classes they can take and other opportunities. And one of the things I like about the requirement is that there are so many ways to satisfy it. We actually work with partner schools. We send students to Copenhagen for a short-term study abroad program, one on regenerative sustainability, one on ESG investing. In Vienna, we have innovation management, or like a future mobility in the energy landscape in Cologne. So really looking for all different kinds of ways that students can explore that and apply it to their degree.
Right. We often talk at Centercourt about this journey of personal and professional development and business school at the heart of it. It starts with the self-reflection and introspection involved in an application, but clearly extends to the classroom, as a person thinks about the person that they want to be and their values. It's a theme, Gail, that your colleague Jim was speaking to earlier, this notion of service. You give them great business skills, But service strikes me, that's going to be one of those qualities that employers love about Kelley graduates. Is that something that they often bring up?
Yeah, employers are very interested in how students have served their fellow students or served the community, whether it's the global community or the local community. Our students take part in community service activities in a number of different ways. We have a program that we rolled out a few years ago that's called One Kelley, in which some of our MBA students mentor Kelley undergrads in providing consulting services to small businesses, often women-owned or owned and run by members of the Black community or other underrepresented minority communities here in Bloomington or the surrounding area. So that's one way that our students give back. Another is through our GLOW-based consulting programs, where students do consulting projects in developing economies around the world. They just returned this week from doing projects in Botswana, Greece, and Argentina. So that was exciting, working for NGOs or working for small businesses or entrepreneurs there. And one fun community service activity that we do each year that's sponsored by our Kelley Women in Business group is a faculty auction to benefit the Boys and Girls Club here in Bloomington. So they don't auction off the faculty, but faculty, staff, and students donate different kinds of items. Maybe they are hosting an ice cream party at their house, Tina, or a boating outing, or who knows what, all kinds of different things. And they're auctioned off to students, faculty, and staff. And we typically raise between $20,000 and $30,000 in one evening for the Boys and Girls Club here in town, which is really amazing and welcome.
Well, once we're off the live stream, Gail, you can tell us whether a marketing professor is worth more than an organizational behavior or an accounting professor. But that'll stay just
okay, privately, not publicly. We won't say that.
Now, we've talked about faculty, Russ, and of course the academic rigor and your research that's a core part of Fuqua. As we think of business modeling and analytics, all of those skills that your students will be developing, but this whole piece of soft skills. I'm not sure if soft skills is today the way to describe collaboration, but communication, emotional intelligence. What place does that have in the program to foster those skills?
Yeah, that's a really timely question. As we went through this review that I was talking about earlier of our curriculum, we had a lot of discussions that came back to that. And so kind of at the forefront there, we have a lot of, especially from the faculty side, a lot of input around analytics and like what role does AI play in education? How do we think about training or helping people be prepared to use it as a tool? But very quickly, it turns to soft skills and this conversation around, as tools like analytics or AI become more prevalent, it's going to become even more important for people to be very well versed, for our graduates to be really well versed in how to use them and how to use them responsibly. As part of that review, we asked students about our curriculum, and one thing that came out of that was that they felt a fairly balanced curriculum was where we should be, but that we should overweight soft skills as part of that. Same thing from recruiters, is that they love, and one thing that they recruit us for is the balance student that we produce, the poet and the quant together in one. But this idea that soft skills really are a critical skill. And to me, that was a really interesting insight to think about. We've got to be really committed to students understanding this landscape and being able to manage a lot of the tools that could drive us down a different path if we're not really careful about how we manage them. And so we've invested obviously in our curriculum. I think it might have been Gail who mentioned communications before. Number one course that recruiters reflected that we should have and retain in the curriculum is communications. We have a 2-sequence leadership communication set of classes, and I would agree that you need to be able to effectively communicate your ideas. And then the other softer skills around leader development. Ethics has been discussed here quite a bit. We have one of the very first courses we have is leadership ethics and organization. And then flowing that through to co-curricular, some of the things, again, that Gail just mentioned around activities that are in the community. A lot of ours are student-led. And so we've got more than 60 clubs. You've got an opportunity to be a president of one of those clubs or in leadership in one of those clubs. Same thing, we're very active student government. And so how do we begin to give people repetitions? How can you begin to take this in an academic setting, but then also have it in an applied sense? And so I think the co-curricular and the curricular complement very well. And then obviously the career side. So behaviorally, how do we ensure that you've got some EQ in the way that you interact in the roles that you'll have and in recruiting? And we do some things like Strength Finder and things like that when students first get here to help them do a little bit of self-discovery in that process. But I love the question because I do think it's one that we've had to think about and really think about how we respond to, because I do think there's this inclination to say we've got to go really deep in analytics and AI. But I think you've got to understand what you're doing with those and have the soft skills to manage those.
Right. So Gary, when our viewers are on your website and looking at the core curriculum, compare that to alumni 5 years out, 10 years. I'd love to be at the reunion of the class of 35. If they're still around, that's an evening I would love to share. But what is it that they then remember in terms of all of the different skills, areas that they've developed, even the self-confidence it's given them for the next steps in their life? What things do they reflect back to you as really being memorable and stand out?
Yeah, I just to pick up on some of the things Russ said, I think that in some ways our core is the same, in some ways it's very different. Certainly the analytic rigor, accounting and statistics, we call it data and decisions, are two foundational courses in every business school core. And so they certainly remember that. But, I think the things that we've evolved to is the first class that our students take is called Foundations of Inclusive Leadership. And so I think that what, probably 10, 15, 20 years ago, business schools sought to provide these very, functional skills to provide people the success in making these career transitions. And over the years, as really we've brought in a more mature, audience, when I went to business school 30 years ago, I was 3 years out of college, and that was around the average. And now, our typical student is 28, 29. And so they've already been at a certain level where they've had some management responsibilities, either of projects or people. And they really are looking to kind of become this transformational leader. And so the things we've added, in addition to Foundations of Inclusive Leadership, we start with that, and then we bookend it with ethics and organizational behavior, because we want them to understand how organizations, particularly where they're going to be going for their summer internship, work and how they work in different scenarios. At the same time, how should they look at not only their first year at Anderson, but the outside world from this ethical lens of business? So, and in the middle, we put all the component for courses like accounting, and I mentioned data decisions, economics, global macro econ. We decided that global macro econ is important because we are such a global society today. And, LA is unique in its own right because there's about 40 ethnicities or geographic areas that people come from, and there's more people in Southern California than any place in the world but those home regions. And so we do get to tap in on this very diverse environment internationally and globally, and also with our faculty, so that people are looking at this from a global lens and a global perspective, because we are so connected to all these other parts of the world. But yeah, I think the business core of what we traditionally would call it is still there. But I think what we have added are these important components that really prepare people to step into leadership roles once they leave.
Right. And I often think that sort of I don't know if it's a hidden gem, but the whole accompaniment in terms of careers and personal development. Tina, your colleagues that work so closely, individuals that may have shared in their application, well, I want this position working at this company, and then they get to play for 2 years and explore new doors that will open. Just talk to us, how career services provides that level of insight and, encouraging that open-mindedness.
Yeah, definitely. We use the analogy of a test kitchen, and we basically have a huge wall of ingredients, including, what's in the business school, what's beyond the business school, and what students tap into themselves. And everybody makes a different recipe. And so, and gone are the days that, when 3 companies would come in and hire 100 students, and you'd have sort of these massive hiring opportunities, which was convenient for business schools. But what I love about the environment now is it's a much more nimble environment, and students are really playing a role in looking. We have so many different ways that companies can come to campus, whether it's investing in projects, whether it's coming for interview days, whether it's coming to forums. And so, students really lean into that. And one of the things that we like to think about business school, one, it's sort of an immersive experience where you're jumping in with both feet, especially in a full-time program, which all of us have here. And by having that opportunity, you can try certain things on. You get your internship as an opportunity to try things, and you really take advantage of a lot of the resources that our career team can really help you. We want to look at these 2 years as the base for your lifetime career. And I think all of us, one of the big things that we're trying to teach students is that this is the beginning of your learning, of lifelong learning. We want to help train leaders and learners for a lifetime. And career is the same way. They're going to be looking for jobs in the future. And, sometimes a student will have a really easy time finding a job or an internship or and I'll say, whatever you do, don't miss out on taking advantage of the full spectrum of career opportunities here. We have a class in the first semester so that we can kind of let them focus on curriculum, but we pace what they need to know on the career side. So we have a career class that they take alongside their core. And we want to train them to be able to do that because they're going to be doing just-in-time hiring. Not everybody can hire somebody and say, yeah, start in 9 months. We'll see you then. And so I think in this environment, students have really been able to take a lot of ownership in partnership with our career team. And so our career team is there for coaching. Students are reflecting. They're doing a lot of the assessments, as Russ was saying, like, thinking about who they are, what they want to do. And then we can add value to, I always say, whatever you do, I just saw a group of students in the lobby and I said, right now is your time to explore, because our students will all tell you by the time you get to business school, your head is doing 100 other things. So take this time now for sort of exploration, thinking about where you want to be, and talk to people who are doing what you want to do and start that base of a network. And, anyone will talk to you. I'll say this to all the people watching this, but you will be amazed at who will say yes to a 20-minute conversation if you say, I'm thinking about getting my MBA and I'd love to learn more about what you do.
Right. Did those students know who you were? It wasn't just this random woman walking up to them.
Yeah, no, mostly I don't tell them who I am, and I just,
Now, Gail, you described earlier with Me Inc., starting this sort of careers dialogue even before, the program begins. As you look at those individuals as they arrive at school with their expectations, perhaps even their inhibitions, and then you look at them, perhaps through the summer internship and coming back for their second year, certainly as they graduate, is it really tangible, the difference that you see in those individuals?
Oh, it's amazing. They come in, I see my colleagues nodding their heads here. They come in, they're excited, but they're nervous and they're wondering about a lot of things. Like, can I make that career pivot that I'm hoping to make? Can I get a job in this industry that I've dreamed about? Could I land a role at one of these several companies that I've had my eye on? And then when I land the job, can I be successful? Do I have the skills I need? Will I know how to give a presentation to the leadership in my department or the C-suite at the end of my summer? And they do all those things. They learn everything that they need to know, and they go in there and they nail it. over the summer, and they come back and they're so happy, they're so excited, so gratified, and they have so much more confidence. I really see a big difference from August of year one to August of year two when they come back, and they're able to then tell their first years authoritatively how they should do it all and be successful. So the cycle continues. You know, we can all sing the circle of life here now.
And then no doubt beyond Russ, I mean, it's not just preparing them for that first position out of school, but you know, this will continue to influence and create opportunities for the rest of their career.
That's the hope. And so we talk here a lot about it. I think the word's been used by Tina, but the idea of optionality. I think some of the things that have already been brought up is ensuring that you have that in terms of what you do academically, but also that you know how to fish. You know, it's like you know how to go out there and find not just this next role, but be prepared to look and move toward another role. And so we talk quite a bit about what that process looks like and making sure people are engaged and proactive about their career. This idea of intentionality, I think, has come up. And when students get here, you know, we will make sure that they're intentional about the way they think about their first job. I guarantee you some percentage of our students, and it's not trivial, observe other people chasing something else and get influenced by that. And so there's a lot of discussion around this idea of understanding who they are, the self-awareness, their values, what's important to them, and then what does a career look like for them, and understanding that that different things, their lives are going to change. And so their personal lives, their professional lives are going to intersect in ways that they may want to pivot again after business school. And it's our obligation just to make sure that they're prepared to do that. And so hopefully on the academic side, and that they're prepared, but our career management center has thought quite a bit about this. And, you know, to the question you asked earlier, you know, I hope that when they come back for their 40th or 50th reunion, that we can have that conversation with them and they can tell us about how they were prepared, not just for that first role, but for their second, third, and fourth roles. And they were able to be promoted through.
Right. And wonderful ambassadors for all of your schools. So touch points, Gary, and you know, we talked about technology and AI, but of course, the humans at the heart of all of this. Now, whether it's alumni, your colleagues and teams, what are the different ways that our viewers can now, you know, find out more about Anderson and think about the right next steps for them?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the easiest way, probably for all our schools, is the website. It takes you to, it answers so many questions, but it gives you opportunity to schedule a tour, talk to a current student, you know, so you don't necessarily have to physically be in Los Angeles to engage with our community. You know, I think that human experience is so critical because people need to get a sense of lived experiences, the people that are going through this program, people that have gone through the program. And, you know, much like the other programs, if you reach out to someone and you want to know about that business school, to an alum, they want to talk about it because they had a great experience. I love the question you asked, Gail, because we were all nodding because we can go on each one of our campuses and say, that's a second year, that's a first year, because it's like working out. It's like, you know, when you first work out, it hurts. And the first year, it breaks you down and then it builds you up. And students graduate with this experience of coming in thinking really executionally. And I think that's one of our challenges. It's today's society thinks so transactionally because it costs so much to go to these institutions. But when they leave, they realize how much they got for their time investment, for the resource investment, because it's not just about getting a skill set to get a job. It's really preparing you for that third, fourth, fifth job, as Russ mentioned. And I do think that you won't get a sense for what your story is in any one of these schools unless you engage, not just with the website. That's a starting point to get information, but then to find out how you can have those personal conversations.
You mentioned, Tina, earlier, your kitchen. So obviously everyone over to Tina's place to find out more about McCombs. But in the respect for that engagement, they'll need to clean down the surfaces and leave it spotless as they leave your kitchen. As we think about that in terms of alumni that themselves are very busy, you know, committed individuals, but very loyal to their school, just perhaps a pointer for how to best approach a conversation that you might have with an alum, being respectful of their time, but what a great opportunity.
Sure. I think alums have had I also loved Gail's reflection, because these are really transformational 2 years that students spend in our programs. And so I think recognizing that, or knowing that, and we get to see that. Part of the reason we all do our jobs is because of the opportunity to be witness to those experiences and the ripple effects beyond that as they leave here. And so if I were a student, I would, approach an alum and say, I'm looking at Texas McCombs, or whatever school, UCLA, Indiana, Duke. And I love this about it, and I'd love to hear more about your experience. Give a hook so that they know what they're going to be talking about. Put a 15 to 20 minute cap on it. Be respectful of that time. Anybody can say yes to 15 to 20 minutes. It may turn into 45, but let that be the choice of the person on the other end of the line. But have a specific question. All of us have gotten the emails from the random student that has 7 questions. Dear Tina, what is McCombs like? Who is he? So be specific in your communication with an alum so they know what they're going to be answering, if they feel educated to answer that.
Right. Well, I'd love to be with you in Bloomington in the springtime, Gail. As you walk onto the campus every day, what is it that you love as you walk into work?
Well, I have to say the Indiana University Bloomington campus is beautiful, and it's recognized as one of the most beautiful campuses in the United States. The landscaping here is incredible. And in the springtime, the flowers, the trees are just gorgeous. I look out my window to what we call the Arboretum, that's just full of beautiful trees and greenery. So gorgeous campus here in Bloomington. It's a wonderful college town.
Well, my last question is for Russ. 42 years ago, stepping out onto that basketball court, and here you are now, a senior associate dean at Duke. Did you know that at the time? And have you loved the adventure that's brought you back?
I have absolutely loved the adventure. At the time, I was probably thinking a little too transactionally about what was next and what is an econ major, what responsibilities I had. But over time, the depth of kind of the commitment to Duke and just the fit for the culture, as you were asking about, what can students learn about each of our institutions, I would say, just find a place that really fits in your heart. And Duke was it for me. And I got admitted 3 times and came 3 times, and find what's right for you. And maybe it's different schools. But I hope people find and enjoy and are passionate about their institutions the way I am about Duke.
Well, I think all of our viewers will pick up on the passion that each and every one of you has for your institutions. And if we can capture even half of that at Center Court, that's a rare privilege. So Gail and Tina, Russ and Garrett, it was lovely to have you with us for the last 45 minutes. There will now be a breakout session for 2 of the schools that will conclude day 1 of Center Court. But thank you for being with us.